Obhafuoso Robert joins us. He's a lawyer and also, took in the elections in Edo State. That was in 2007. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, now we're trying to compare and actually see what can be learned from this particular election in Anambra State. First, tell us your take on this particular elections.
Well, I'll say that I sympathize with Professor Jega. While I want to commend him, I really sympathize with him. And why? Because of the nature of election in Nigeria. If you will observe, just like the previous people that have spoken, if you have a legal mind, you will not share a different view from the people that have just spoken. And having been part of election process in Nigeria, in Edo State, I say I sympathize with him. I'll take you back. We have to have a sense of history. Elections have only been conducted 4 times in Nigeria. That's at the national level. If you just go back to the last 1.5 years, taking 3 elections, the Ondo election, Adamawa election, and the Edo election. In the Edo election in particular, everybody was almost sure that, was sure that Oshomole was going to win that election. I am from Edo State. I knew he was going to win that election. But alas, before the current governor left his village, he had already started calling for Jega's head. 2-3 days after, when the current governor was collecting the certificate of return in Abuja, he was singing praises of Jega. Talk about election in Ondo State. Even when you see that election is going your way, not until they hear the final result, you see everybody is calling for the head of INEC boss and all that. So I think it's a calculated attempt by the politicians really to get what they want by all means and at all cost. And it's most unfortunate. And I sympathize with him, and that is the reason why I really
Mr. Eziola, Mr. Eziola said something here. He said, well, the opposition, they never win, they never allow, or rather, they never win elections in any state. So it is as if the ruling party of every state makes sure that every council election is won by its political party. And so long that we have that trend, it means we don't have free, fair elections in the country. You believe that?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a thesis on Nigerian political election at the local government. And I will be opting, or I will be recommending, that's another thing I intend to send to the Constitutional Conference. I'll be recommending that local government election should be non-party, like it is done in Ghana, so that we can grow popular people from the local government, so that it is at the national election that you start having party-based election. But at the local government, because everybody, if you are popular within your locality, you don't need any party. You don't need any party. So to that extent,
so you should have independent candidates.
Not independent, non-party.
What does that mean?
It's beyond independent candidate. If you're talking about independent candidate, it means you still have political parties participating in that election. But what I'm saying is that non-party at all, what we used to call zero party.
That means
anybody
in the local government can come out.
Everybody. You can come out in your local government. Suleiman can contest the election under non-party.
Negating the political parties at the local level.
Absolutely. So that you don't have the kind of situation we're having now. And at that time...
Well, do you know the fear there? Sorry to cut you again. Yeah. The fear is that what if I'm coming out under such kind of election?
Yes.
And I'm being sponsored by the ruling party of my state without you knowing.
I just said...
the state can as well try to prosecute that election for about, let's say, 18 candidates, if you have 18 local government.
Yes.
We go out, we say, okay, let's handpick those people. They are not party members, but in a way, they are also party members without you knowing. So we sponsor them, and we make sure that they come in and they do our bidding.
That is just one of the items I'll be recommending. And another thing to that, I just said that is one. The next thing will be to strengthen the state SEC. How do you strengthen them? Just what is done at the national. Basically, it's a question of funding that makes them run to the chief executive of the state. And it's because of funding that the state chief executives are able to manipulate their mind, because if you want to perform as chairman of SEC or whatever, or of the SEC, you need funding. There is no state in this country that would first not seek the corporation, just go cap in hand to the chief executive of that state seeking funding. Why can't they be on the first line charge of that state, just like what we have at the national?
The very first thing you said was you expressed sympathy for INEC Chairman, and you gave reasons why. But one of the things that also comes up isn't the same INEC that gives the room for those alarms that are usually raised. I mean, for instance, now all the gas that came considered that elections did not start on time in Anambra State, in spite of the short distance it was seen of all the local governments from the capital.
Yes, you are talking about. I just said election has just been conducted only 4 times in Nigeria.
Yes.
There is no way.
At least at the national level.
Yes, at the national.
You're very specific about that.
When you're dealing with human factors, you cannot have a perfect situation. You cannot. Once there are human beings involved, because there are so many factors that we may not have the opportunity to talk about here, particularly when it comes to logistics in terms of election. As a matter of fact, we have to give it to Jega. He came out openly to say, I accept responsibility because one of my staff was indicted in that process. I think we should commend him. If you look at where we are coming from, we've never had that. We've never had that kind of
thing. So you think that in spite of the glitches that were experienced in the Anambra elections, there are some things to commend?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think the flaws that, particularly if you see what flaws are people really talking about, the complaints we're having is purely on the register. Everything I've been monitoring your program on this issue, which is quite commendable. Everybody's talking about the register, which is vital, very vital. But again, to what extent is the credibility of the register in question? In my view, is not substantial.
But that's a matter of perception. It's not based on any science.
On the evidence of what is being reported in the dailies, what is reported in your stations, and what we hear. Even if I have to take that.
Why do you believe it's not substantial?
INEC came out, announced registration, said they were going to give the parties the copies of the voters register, which they did. I listened to some of the parties yesterday acknowledging that they received, but that they complained that the last one they received, the electronics one they received, particularly the PDP man yesterday, they didn't have time. Who do you blame for that? That they didn't have time to check it if their candidate is not even impossible if some of these people didn't register twice.